Joining us to discuss, DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin. Tricia, thank you for being with us tonight. You know, you want the temperature to go down in Minneapolis, okay? You got all these Democratic politicians talking about the temperature. I don't know. I've been paying attention to a lot of their comments. They've been turning it way up, Tricia. What are ICE agents in Minneapolis facing right now thanks to all this overheated rhetoric?
Well, Brian, thank you for having me. I mean, just yesterday, we saw 4 vehicle ramming attacks on our law enforcement, 3 of which were in Minneapolis. We saw multiple today. We're seeing a coordinated campaign of violence against our law enforcement. You laid out the statistics right now. There, an 8,000% increase in death threats, 1,000% increase in assaults against our law enforcement. But Brian, I think it's very important we lay out the facts and reiterate what happened yesterday. Our ICE law enforcement were doing a lawful conducting operations. They were outside their vehicle trying to get their vehicle out of the snow. And these individuals started to surround them, harass them. They had been stalking them throughout the day. Then they started playing chicken. They started to impede law enforcement. That's when our law enforcement approached the individual in question, told her to get out of the vehicle, to stop obstructing law enforcement. And that's when things turned deadly. She put her foot on the gas. Our law enforcement officer was in front of her, and he proceeded to fire those defensive shots. He was in fear of his own life. He was in fear of the public safety and the law enforcement officers around him. It really, you know, any loss of life is a tragedy, and this is no exception. And we are praying for the deceased family and for our law enforcement officer.
But I want to talk about, Tricia, also the ongoing threat to these ICE officers, because this woman put herself in the middle of federal law enforcement operations. And the ICE agents, this is just recently, the Marriott hotel chain has had to fire an employee who leaked information on ICE agents who were checking in as guests, leaking photos of their names, emails, and surveillance images. And I just want to point out, there are several federal statutes that could apply to prosecuting an individual for doxing federal employees. And I think everyone who cares about what ICE is doing, say arresting dangerous, violent, illegal alien criminals in Minnesota and elsewhere, would like someone like that to be prosecuted for trying to harm federal law enforcement.
Absolutely, Dagan. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If you dox law enforcement, if you lay hands on law enforcement, if you try to weaponize your vehicle against law enforcement, that absolutely should be prosecuted. But you brought up a great point, which is, why is ICE law enforcement there in the first place? Why did President Trump and Secretary Noem surge federal law enforcement there? We have seen under Governor Walz's tenure as governor a 50% increase in homicides. We are seeing rampant crime, which our Homeland Security investigators have great leads on. And of course, we're seeing massive amount of criminal illegal aliens. Just a few days ago, Secretary Noem was present for the arrest of a murderer from Ecuador. There was also long rap sheets for him, as well as other violent perpetrators like child pedophiles. Dagan, I've seen the rap sheets on a lot of these guys. It is heinous what they have done to children. We will continue to be on the ground there in Minneapolis. We've made about 1,500 arrests, so far in the last 5 weeks alone, and we will continue to make sure that Minneapolis, the citizens there, are safe when Tim Walz and Mayor Frey there have completely failed their citizens.
You know, let's talk about one of the root causes of you being there, and that is the fact that you have so much fraud that has not been investigated to any adequate degree by the state officials who should be doing that. So Homeland Security Investigations is going to be going, I think, as you characterize it, door to door to look at the implicated institutions and people and find out what's really going on. That's the real root story here. Tricia, talk about what you're going to do and what you hope you can accomplish with this investigation.
Yeah, we're already there, going door to door. Our Homeland Security investigators, we've surged there. Brian, this is actually the largest ICE operation, whether it be Homeland Security and ERO, that we've ever had. We also have USCIS on the ground, who's doing immigration audits, checking for immigration fraud, wide scale. This is a large scale investigation, a whole of government approach under President Trump. You have HHS, you have SBA, you have the Treasury Department. We're all working in tandem to make sure we're rooting out these fraud. The American people are demanding accountability, they're demanding justice, and we're going to deliver that to them.
Tricia, thinking about this woman who lost her life in Minneapolis, I call this, it's outrage, but it's asymmetric outrage from the Democrats in this sense, that if they had screamed to the high heavens the names of Laken Riley and Rachel Morin and Jocelyn Nungaray, Kayla Hamilton, Ruby Garcia, Lisbeth Medina, America Thayer, Camilla Williams, I could go on and on and on of the defenseless women who were murdered by illegal aliens because the border was opened by Joe Biden and his ilk. If they had cried, if those Democrats of his party had begun shouting from the rooftops to the heavens, the border would have been closed, and we wouldn't be facing any of this.
Dagan, you're absolutely correct. And I think about the victims that are in Minneapolis alone. I mean, I just mentioned that we had an individual from Ecuador wanted for murder. We've seen scores and scores of child pedophiles. What about those children victims? What about the victims of domestic violence? What about the victims of these known and suspected terrorists that we found on the ground in Minneapolis and arrested? Where is their justice? The Department of Homeland Security, President Trump and Secretary Noem are delivering that by making these arrests, while Tim Walz buried his head in the sand and actually harbored these individuals. But the mainstream media doesn't care about these American victims. They don't care about the crimes perpetuated by those in this country illegally. Instead, they want to continue to demonize and vilify our law enforcement. But we are going to stand with them. This was an act of self-defense, and we are glad that he is safe today.
Tricia McLaughlin, we are so glad you could join us today to give us the latest and explain what's really happening on the ground. The difference between facts and fiction is key here, and that's why we're glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dagan.